She fell ill while taking care of their grandma. What they later did to her will shock you. Before I continue with this story, tell me where you are currently watching from in the comments. Susanna stood in front of the large gate, her small travel bag in one hand and a paper with the house address in the other. Her heart beat fast as she stared at the tall mansion in Maitama, Abuja. It was the biggest house she had ever seen in her life. The security man at the gate looked her up and down before finally opening the gate. "Go inside. Madam Esther is waiting," he said without even a smile. Susanna was only 20 years old. She had just finished secondary school and couldn't afford to continue her education. Her mother was sick back home and her younger siblings needed food. So when she heard about a job to take care of an old woman in a rich family's home, she didn't think twice. She prayed about it, packed her small bag, and came to Abuja. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. She walked slowly into the sitting room where everything sparkled. Even the floor looked like it had never been touched. A middle-aged woman wearing a tight dress and long eyelashes looked at Susanna with clear irritation. "You're the maid?" she asked, frowning. "Yes, ma. I'm here for Mama Esther," Susanna replied with her head bowed. "Follow me," the woman said and turned without another word. She led Susanna down a long hallway to a room at the back. There, lying in a hospital-style bed, was a thin, wrinkled woman. Her gray hair was neatly tied in a scarf, and she looked tired, like someone who had seen too much of life. Her name was Grandma Esther. "She can't walk much. You'll bathe her, feed her, and sit with her. Just make sure she doesn't die on your watch," the woman said coldly, then walked out. Susanna stood by the door for a moment before stepping in. "Good morning, Ma," she said gently. The old woman turned slowly. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Another one?" she asked, her voice weak. Susanna nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma. I'm Susanna. I will take care of you." The old woman looked away. They always say that. Then they run when things get hard. That was how Susanna began her job. Every morning, she would help Grandma Esther to the bathroom, clean her, dress her, and prepare her meals. She would sit beside her, listen to her stories, and sometimes sing for her when she couldn't sleep. Slowly, the old woman began to warm up to her. But life in the mansion was far from easy. The grandchildren didn't like Susanna. They called her names like village girl and dirty maid. One of the girls, a teenager named Amanda, once poured water on the floor and told Susanna to lick it clean like a dog. When Susanna didn't react, Amanda laughed and said, "You're lucky my grandma likes you, otherwise you'd be on the streets." Susanna never told Grandma Esther about these things. She didn't want to add more stress to her. She just wiped her tears at night and reminded herself why she took the job in the first place. One afternoon, while feeding Grandma Esther pap, the old woman suddenly reached out and held Susanna's hand. "You remind me of myself when I was your age. Hard-working, quiet, strong." Susanna smiled. "Thank you, Ma. I don't have much time left, Susanna. But God sent you to me. I feel it." Susanna blinked back tears. "Don't say that, Ma. You'll be fine." But deep inside, she feared the old woman was right. Every day, the bond between Susanna and Grandma Esther grew stronger. While the rest of the family visited only when they needed to, Susanna was always there, singing, talking, or praying beside the old woman. To the rest of the family, Susanna was just a maid. But to Grandma Esther, she had become something more. A friend, a daughter, a light in her final days. Susanna woke up early each morning, sometimes before the sun had even risen. The first thing she did was check on Grandma Esther. The old woman usually smiled weakly when she saw her. Susanna would greet her, adjust her pillows, and help her wash up for the day. It had become a quiet routine, and although it was hard work, Susanna never complained. No one in the mansion really cared about Grandma Esther's needs. Her children were always busy with work or traveling, and the grandchildren spent their days either in school or glued to their phones. They only entered Grandma Esther's room when guests were around or when they needed to show they still cared. But Susanna saw it all. She saw the loneliness in the old woman's eyes and the pain she tried to hide. One day, after giving her a sponge bath, Susanna helped Grandma Esther into a clean gown and sat beside her to comb her hair. "Do you know, Susanna," Grandma Esther said softly, "that I once had dreams of living my old age surrounded by my children and grandchildren? I imagined laughter, stories, and warm hugs." Susanna paused, the comb in her hand. "But they're here, Ma," she said gently. "They are," the old woman said, looking out the window, "but only in body, not in heart." Susanna didn't know what to say, so she continued combing, her hands moving slowly and with care. Over the weeks, Grandma Esther began to share more. She told Susanna about how she built her life from nothing, how she helped her husband grow his business before he died, and how she gave everything she had to raise her children. But now, in her old age, they had all left her behind. Each one had excuses: business meetings, school runs, work trips, and social events. But deep down, Esther knew it was more than that. They had no patience for her anymore. One morning, Susanna started to feel dizzy. She had barely eaten the day before because she had been so busy. Her legs felt weak and her head hurt, but she pushed through it, as she always did. After preparing Grandma Esther's breakfast, she walked into the room but stumbled halfway and dropped the tray. Amanda, one of the granddaughters, was walking past and burst into laughter. "Wow, look at the clumsy rat. Can't even carry food properly," Amanda said, pointing at her. Susanna quickly picked up the tray, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Amanda snapped a picture and walked away, still laughing. That afternoon, Susanna collapsed in the kitchen. The cook helped her to her room and called a doctor. Grandma Esther heard about it and demanded to see her immediately. "Bring her to me," she shouted, stronger than she had sounded in days. Susanna was wheeled into her room, pale and weak. "Why didn't you tell anyone you were feeling sick?" Grandma Esther asked, holding her hand tightly. "I didn't want to bother anyone, Ma," Susanna whispered. "You needed me." Grandma Esther's eyes filled with tears. "No, child, you need care too. I will not let them throw you away like they did me." From that day, Grandma Esther became fiercely protective of Susanna. She told the doctor to look after her like family. She also warned the other staff not to mistreat her again. But of course, the family didn't take her seriously. They thought it was just the rambling of an old dying woman. Despite being sick, Susanna still tried to check in on Grandma Esther every day. She would sit beside her for a few minutes, even if she could barely stand. Sometimes she would just hold the old woman's hand and say nothing at all. Those moments spoke louder than words. Meanwhile, the family began to notice how close the two had become. They whispered about it in the living room and laughed behind Susanna's back. "I hope she's not planning to use that closeness to grab anything from Grandma," one of the sons said. "Don't worry," the daughter replied. "She'll be out of here as soon as Mama passes." But none of them knew what was truly happening between Susanna and Grandma Esther. They didn't see the nights Susanna stayed up just to keep her company. They didn't hear the quiet prayers. They didn't feel the bond growing between a forgotten grandmother and a girl with nothing but a kind heart. The days passed slowly, and the air in the mansion grew heavier. Grandma Esther's health continued to decline. She was eating less, speaking less, and sleeping more. But whenever Susanna walked into the room, her eyes would light up, even if only for a moment. One evening, as the rain poured softly outside, Susanna sat beside her, gently massaging her legs with warm oil. The old woman had been restless that day, shifting in bed and wincing from body pain. She finally reached out and placed her trembling hand on Susanna's. "My child," Grandma Esther whispered, "I don't have many days left." Susanna froze. "Don't say that, Ma. You'll be fine." But Grandma Esther shook her head slowly. "No, listen to me. I've lived long enough to know when my time is near. And before I go, I need to tell you something." She asked Susanna to bring a box from the bottom of her closet. Inside was a worn-out notebook, several envelopes, and a flash drive. Grandma Esther opened the notebook and pointed to a page filled with handwritten notes. This is my new will. My lawyer already has a copy. It's signed and sealed." Susanna looked confused. "Will? Ma, why are you showing me this?" Grandma Esther smiled faintly. "Because everything I have, the money in my private savings account, the land in Guarempa, and the apartment in Wuse, I've left it for you." Susanna gasped. "No, Ma, please don't say that. I don't need anything. You've already given me so much." The old woman gripped her hand tighter. "I know, and that's exactly why you deserve it. You didn't take care of me for money. You did it because you have a pure heart. When my own children turned their backs on me, you were here, feeding me, bathing me, talking to me. You gave me something they never could, love." Tears filled Susanna's eyes. She dropped to her knees by the bedside. "Ma, I'm just a maid. I don't deserve." "You are not just a maid," Esther interrupted firmly. "You are a blessing, and this is my thank you." She told Susanna that the will also included a handwritten letter addressed to her children, expressing her disappointment in them. Esther had recorded a video as well, in case they refused to accept her final wishes. "I want you to promise me one thing," the old woman said. "Yes, Ma, anything." "Use what I've given you to build a life, but stay kind. Don't let this world turn your heart cold." Susanna nodded, sobbing softly. That night, Grandma Esther held her hand and drifted into sleep. She never woke up again. The mansion was filled with fake tears the next morning. Her children flew in from different states and countries, acting heartbroken. The grandchildren posted filtered photos of her with long captions on social media, calling her the best grandma in the world. But Susanna knew the truth. While the family discussed burial arrangements, no one said a word to Susanna. She had been pushed aside like a forgotten object. She was told her job was done and that she could leave before the week ended. No one asked how she was feeling or if she needed anything. But the lawyer came 2 days later with a sealed envelope and a flash drive. "All of you will need to sit down," he said calmly. "This will reading will change a few things." The children chuckled, expecting minor changes to the will. Maybe a donation to charity or a gift to a church. None of them expected what came next. As the lawyer read the will, their smiles slowly faded. "To Susanna Okoro, who cared for me in my final days, I leave my savings of 82 million naira, a 2-bedroom apartment in Wuse, and my 600 square meter land in Guarimpa. She was the daughter I never had." The room went silent. Then came the letter to her children. "You, my blood, left me to rot in a room while you chased money and status. I leave you with your pride and your businesses. But my love, I gave it to the only one who remembered I was human." As the recording played, the truth burned through every word. Susanna stood quietly, her face wet with tears, not because of the money, but because she had lost the only person who ever saw her as more than just a maid. The family was furious. Accusations flew. Threats were made. But the will was legal, signed, and recorded. And so, the girl they once scorned had become the one thing they could never be again, truly loved. The tension in the living room was so thick, one could almost touch it. The members of the wealthy Akande family sat stiffly in their designer clothes, their faces frozen with disbelief. No one spoke as the lawyer's voice echoed through the room, reading the final wishes of Grandma Esther, the matriarch they had neglected for years. The video recording continued to play on the TV screen. In it, Grandma Esther, seated upright in bed just weeks before her death, looked straight into the camera with calm, determined eyes. "If you are hearing this," she began, "then I am no longer with you. I want to make a few things clear." Her voice was slow but sharp, every word landing like a hammer on stone. "I gave everything to raise my children. I wiped your tears, I stayed up during your illnesses, I worked side by side with your father to build the wealth you now enjoy. But when I grew old and weak, none of you stayed. You pushed me into the shadows and hired strangers to care for me." She paused, her eyes watering slightly. "But God sent me someone better than blood, Susanna." The camera shifted slightly, but her voice never wavered. "Susanna didn't owe me anything, yet she gave me everything, her time, her care, her respect, and her love. For that, I have decided to give her everything I can." The screen faded to black. For a moment, no one said a word. Then Desmond, the oldest son and the self-proclaimed leader of the family, stood up. "This is madness," he shouted. "She was clearly manipulated. That girl poisoned her mind." "She's just a maid," added his sister Gloria. "How can a stranger get all that property and money while we, her children, are left with nothing?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses calmly. "To be clear, the rest of the estate is intact. The family shares in the company, the house, and other assets remain with you. But your mother made it very clear that Susanna's share is non-negotiable. The will is valid. It was signed and recorded with her full mental awareness." Susanna stood in a corner of the room, her head down. She hadn't even wanted to attend the reading, but the lawyer insisted she be present. She wore the same plain dress she had worn the day she arrived at the mansion. She had no jewelry, no makeup, just a heart still mourning the loss of Grandma Esther. Amanda, the same granddaughter who had laughed at Susanna months ago, sneered. "I told you all, that girl was scheming, pretending to be humble, playing the innocent maid. Look at her now, acting holy while collecting inheritance." Susanna finally looked up. Her voice was soft, but her words were clear. "I never asked for anything. I didn't even know Mama Esther left me anything until that night. All I ever did was take care of her because she deserved love. I'm sorry if that offends you." Her calmness only fueled their anger. The room turned into chaos. Some threatened to sue, others called for an investigation. But the lawyer reminded them that Grandma Esther had covered all legal angles. There was nothing they could do. Within days, Susanna moved out of the mansion, quietly, without celebration. She didn't take any furniture or jewelry, just a box of Grandma Esther's old books, her Bible, and the final letter the old woman had written to her. Weeks later, headlines appeared online. "Maid becomes millionaire overnight, the hidden will of Abuja's grand matriarch." But Susanna stayed out of the spotlight. Instead of using the money for luxury, she made a surprising move. She bought an old building in Lugbe and turned it into an elderly care home. She named it Esther's Place, a home for the forgotten. She hired nurses, cooks, and cleaners. She visited every day, sharing stories, singing songs, and feeding the elderly with the same love she had once shown Grandma Esther. Meanwhile, the Akande family began to feel the weight of their choices. Their businesses faced challenges, and their public image suffered after the story went viral. People questioned how a family so rich could abandon their mother and mock the girl who cared for her. One day, Desmond showed up at Esther's Place. He stood at the entrance awkwardly, watching Susanna help an old man eat his lunch. "I came to talk," he said. Susanna looked up, her expression unreadable. "I'm listening." He lowered his eyes. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything." Susanna nodded gently. "It's not me you need to say sorry to." She turned back to the elderly man, placing a napkin on his lap. As Desmond stood there, unsure of what to do next, he realized something. Susanna hadn't just inherited wealth, she had inherited something much greater: purpose, peace, and the lasting legacy of a woman who had been forgotten by her own family. And that was the real shock.